So talking about that, your start to the book, how did you, I mean, obviously the 1984, I understand how you feel about 1984 being a turning point, or an ending point or turning point.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for the book? I mean, had this been, how long did it take to coalesce, I guess?
I had the idea first in 2009. I was on a plane ride. I was flying from New York to Seattle, where I lived at the time. And it just hit me. I'm sitting on the plane, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should write a book about that year. A year of, I'm obsessed with that year in pop. What I always saw it as was a story. I always saw it as the story of an era. I mean, the reason it was so hard to come up because it was sprawling, and because I kind of resisted that for a long time. I thought, well, I can't, what people who sell books will tell you, people who edit books and sell them will tell you that you need one focus, you need to have one central character in the narrative or something. And it's like, I've read so many music books like that are unsatisfying to me, because they do that, because they are so, we're going to tell the story through one person, which can be a great way to do it. But like, oftentimes it feels like you really want to tell something bigger and more sprawling and frankly more interesting. And it took me a long time to sort of admit to myself that that's really what I wanted to do. That's what I had to do in order to write the book I wanted to write, was to take the whole thing on, to not to focus on one thing and follow it through, but to write something more close to an aerial overview. Because I realized I'm not telling a story, I'm painting a canvas. This is a landscape. Yeah. This is very much like, it's a portrait of an era. It's not just like, it's intentionally broad and intentionally sweeping, because I'm trying to give you I'm trying to tell you what, a friend of mine gave me some advice really right after I started thinking about this. He's like, the people reading this book will never have walked into a record store. And that made it incumbent upon me, if I'm going to explain how, I'm trying to explain how the music business worked at the time, the whole music business outside of classical, And once I started like looking at the events, the sort of dates that I peg things to, I realized everything's here pretty much. Like, I thought, oh, I'm not going to be writing about jazz. And then I see the Grammys. It's like, of course I'm going to write about jazz, because that's where, there's Herbie Hancock performing. There's Wynton Marsalis performing and causing controversy in both cases. And, there's a lot of rich stuff there. And once I got into it, it was just like the research took over. People have asked me a little bit like, oh, what was surprising to you about writing this? And the answer is that everything you read in the book practically was surprising, and because that's why it's in the book. It's in the book because I was amazed by it, because I didn't know it. I didn't want to write a book about stuff everybody knew and just fill it with gossip and quips. There's a real sense too that anybody who writes about 80s music should be funny all the time, and it's nothing but a joke, and that everybody who writes about it should just make jokes. And no, I mean, if you can, like, nobody would say that about a book about 60s music.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think a lot of it does have to do with MTV, but there were like these big personalities there, you had your Cyndi Laupers and Michael Jackson and Prince, and it all came together at Radio City Music Hall for the first annual MTV Awards. I mean,
right.
Yeah. And watching that, it's like, it's kind of like this explosion of like all this great music coming together at once. And I don't think it's ever happened again.
That's right. I mean, I think it's happened again in more limited fashion in certain ways, but it hasn't happened like that again for sure. Yeah. And the thing about the thing about the first MTV, the Video Music Awards, is that I watched it, and we didn't have MTV at the time. I watched it on, it wouldn't have been Fox at the time because Fox didn't exist yet. It was syndicated. They syndicated a 2-hour edit of the show for regular TV. It appeared on regular TV within a week. So I watched it then and was sort of like, whoa, look at all this. And because again, MTV was really decisive and really major, but it also wasn't everywhere. Less than half of America was even wired for cable at that point. So the Video Music Awards had a much broader reach than the rest of MTV simply because they had syndicated it.